Our ideas of reality is shaped by a lot of things: language, the circulation of ideas, and of course memory. A topic that I massively enjoy because it's an area that isn't popular enough to be flooded by agenda-driven academic stuff. Instead, it's this fun area that analyzes remembering as a social process that mixes in psychology, history, cultural studies to gain as much of a holistic, balanced understanding of how do we as individuals construct ourselves in terms of memory. And I think Black Panther tends to get quite shafted in relation to analysis and discussions because all its depth and ideas are just reduced to fashionable conversations about race and representation, whereas I think this movie is so much bigger than that. It's got this vast, enormous idea at the center of it about how cultural memory shapes people as social agents, something that is rarely ever talked about, especially in the movie that featured the CGI rhino licking a woman's face. Memory is the trajectory of time. It can be difficult to navigate through sometimes, so we make sense of experience by organizing memory into a narrative that helps us to construct our sense of logic with time. This sounds a bit poncy, but let me get the boring stuff out of the way. There are 3 entry points to understanding how memories persist over time as transmissions in culture. There is individual memory, which is memory as an inward process where we engage with the past to make meaning upon ourselves as individuals. Social memory, which is memory carried out through social groups, families, friends, etc., which provides us our collective memory. And there's cultural memory, that is a process passed on from cultural continuity, such as language, photographs, museums, whatever, other symbolic forms. Now I'm going to focus on the social and cultural dimension, predominantly because they provide the biggest pathways into Black Panther's oddly bleak investigation in how these two aspects of remembering is a tight grip on the individual and on wider society. Memory is about power in Black Panther. Just look at the opening of the movie. It subtly introduces the constructedness of how memory works with the editing. We don't see the death of Njabu, and neither do we know that the boy looking outside with wonder is his soon-to-be orphaned son. And upon rewatching it, a whole new meaning sort of ignites in this opening, that this is a story about those ignored by the authoritative narrative, and those abandoned in memory. Now Jan Asman, yes, go ahead and laugh, critique that this is how certain memories survive time and space, because cultural markers allow certain memories to exist in circulation beyond the passing of social groups. And this exploration of the institutional power of memory is explored visually everywhere in the film. The tribal tradition for fighting for leadership, the whole monarchy political structure, Wakanda's fashion, Eric's proper introduction in the film, everything points to showing that culture is shaped by historical memory, and as a result, it consolidates unquestioned political power. It reinforces a form of unquestioned patriotism and class identity.
I am loyal to the throne, no matter who sits upon it.
When Killmonger is king, nothing can really be done because this isn't a society that has developed any sort of social mobility. Your rank isn't determined by qualifications, but by sex, toughness, and bloodlines. Shuri can't challenge him, and Okoye couldn't just be like, "Hey Dick, you know, f*** all about politics. Go away." Ugh. I didn't need to add the inflection in, but you know what I mean. And that's what's fascinating to me, is that the movie criticizes the utopian notions of Wakanda as much as it celebrates it, because these cultural markers are shown to create limits. Fidelity towards the past is how people use it to mobilize others in the present, to use and manipulate the emotions of the others. Eventually a society like this will fall under its own weight without change, and we have a glimpse of this in Black Panther. I think it's important to understand that power isn't monolithic, it's not forever. It's fluid and quietly chaotic. Yesterday's movements about freedom can become today's oppressors, and so forth. And this is wonderfully examined in Eric Killmonger's storyline, through an exploration of social memory, an area largely worked on by this dude called Maurice Holbwax, I'm pronouncing that right, which focused on the area that we don't really remember alone, but instead we remember as social actors in relations to our social group. And every social group has their own traditions and practices passed on. We inhabit the collective memories for which we belong to, and that's how memory of the periphery can still survive despite the omission in broader culture.
Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships, because they knew death was better than bondage.
If society is gripped tightly by cultural memory, then Eric as an individual is gripped tightly by social memory, because his entire being is shaped by it. All of his motivation is rooted by his shared ethnic historicized memory of American colonialism. Unlike all the other characters, he's not concerned with national patriotism, but purely ethnic revenge.
They'll arm oppressed people all over the world, so they can finally rise up and kill those in power, and their children.
Oh my god, he's so cool. I mean, not the killing the children bit. Now, the problem with Holbrook's perspective of memory is that it's rather static, in the sense that it doesn't quite reconcile the way that we as individuals can exist in multiple social groups at once. Like, I'm a British-born Chinese person, so it doesn't mean I only fit in one social group filled with one set of collective cultural memories, because my ethnic identity and national identity are two completely different things that hold two completely different histories and memories. And this works for, I think, pretty much everyone, because anyone has the capacity to comfortably fit into diverging class, race, gender, sex, and national identities. But this flawed linear view to an extent is addressed in Black Panther, because I think most people see themselves this statically, and Eric represents that. He is trapped in a lot of ways by his anger and unwillingness to see past his childish, aggressive desire for ethnic revenge. When he does LSD, unlike T'Challa, Eric is still in the position of a little boy sitting on the floor listening to his father. His unwillingness to create new meaning and reconcile with the collective memories of being in multiple social groups permanently enslaves them. He even dies because he associates incarceration with colonial enslavement. He can't escape a particular dialogue with his memorial narrative. I sound so pompous saying that. And this is the thing that slightly annoys me about all the media discussion about Black Panther, all of the discourse fixated on race and representation, because that ethnocentric perspective is the very thing that Black Panther is criticizing. This movie is not about race, it's about culture, it's something universal. Every society has those ignored, and the way to remember them isn't to make it into a weapon to hit others with, or to destroy those you find guilty, but to reconcile with it and build something bigger for everyone, to incorporate it and move on. I mean, this sounds a lot more sentimental than I meant, but I don't know, I really like Black Panther, speaking as a guy who couldn't care less about diversity and representation. But all this talk about it on the internet has made me like bleak about the pound.